when I was running my diabetes clinic, for the first several years, it was nothing but pharmaceutical management. We're starting you on this metformin first,
Right.
and we're going to up the dose of your metformin. Oh, your A1C is doing a little better, and then they come back 6 months later. Well, your A1C is going up a little bit, so let's add on this new drug over here at a low dose. And then, okay, it's working. And then next time they come in, it's just a constant. The drug works a little bit, but then they overcome it with their lifestyle because you're not getting to the root of the problem.
Dr. Curt Dearing, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great this morning. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I'm good, and I have personal podcasts on the side. And really, the conversation we were having before we started recording is going to be a fantastic podcast one day. But this is for Nutrition World. These are relatively new. We've done podcasts in different formats for years, but this is a relatively new way of doing it. And so we're just going to talk for 20, 30 minutes. I want to find out more about you. But I heard myself, because I listened to me, say Dr. Curt Dearing. What are you a doctor of, sir?
I am a doctor of pharmacy. It's called a PharmD. Those became pretty popular in the mid-'80s, or they started in the mid-'80s, and then by 1990-something, almost every pharmacy school had gone to PharmD for a number of reasons. One, just to add some gravitas to our degree.
Right.
Two, it added an extra year to PharmD programs so they could get an extra year of tuition out of it.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, not everybody really needed a PharmD. The old registered pharmacist was probably good enough, but we were trying to elevate our profession to be able to be more clinically involved, and we even have back then I did a residency, so we have 1 year and 2 year residencies that people do, because clinical pharmacy is a little different than your regular pharmacy. And so I chose to be a clinical pharmacist. I was lucky to be able to do that because my wife was an attorney at the time.
Oh, wow.
Making good money, so I could afford to have an extra year of not having an income.
Right.
And so it worked out great.
All right. So I wanted to start with what your bona fides were. And we're going to do this kind of in reverse. I want to start with the end in mind of this conversation, and then we'll kind of gradually get to what you do here at Nutrition World. But since you're coming from the pharmacy world, the clinical world, the medical world, now you've been at Nutrition World for a little while. What have you learned, or how has your perspective to the holistic approach to healthcare changed? Because you've been immersed in the other side for decades. So now you're here, you're around a completely different mindset. How's it shifted in how you think, and has it helped you to have both kind of smashed together?
Oh, absolutely. And I started moving into this direction when I was looking for something for my mom. She was starting to have some cognitive decline. And so I realized we had nothing in the pharmaceutical world that seemed to be, very effective. It might slow the progression, was about the best they could do.
Right.
So I looked into the nutraceutical world, to the green pharmacy, and man, I started her on a whole protocol of about 7 different things, and we could talk about that another time, but it turned her around just like that.
Well, how long ago was that?
That was when she was about 86, 85, and she's 91 now.
Okay, so 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, that turned around. So that's and I'd already started moving into more treatments beyond pharmaceuticals, because and I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with this.
Yeah, we're fine. Go where you want to.
But when I was running my diabetes clinic, for the first several years, it was nothing but pharmaceutical management. We're starting you on this metformin first,
right? And
we're going to up the dose of your metformin. Oh, your A1C is doing a little better, and then they come back 6 months later. Well, your A1C is going up a little bit, so let's add on this new drug over here at a low dose. And then, okay, it's working. And then next time they come in, it's just a constant. The drug works a little bit, but then they overcome it with their lifestyle, because you're not getting to the root of the problem. And if you're not getting to the root of the problem, which is what you're putting in your body. So I went through a personal transition in my life about 9 years ago, where I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of the brain fog. I'm tired of just feeling bad every time I eat. And so I looked at my sister and brother-in-law, who had gone to a plant-based diet several years before that. They lost weight. They're active. They've got energy. Life's good for them. So I'm like, oh, that would be great for me to be able to feel that way. So I educated myself on the plant-based diet. Went to a plant-based diet, and it turned me around. So I already knew that the knife and the fork, that what you're putting in your body is a big difference. So all of a sudden I was like, why aren't I doing this with my patients? And so the minute I implemented and I say plant-based, I think plant-based is a huge way to start down the right path.
Right.
Because if you just all of a sudden knock out all the meat, knock out most of the processed foods, I call it oxidatively stressed. When people ask me what kind of diet I live, is it paleo, is it this, that, I just say I try to eat a low oxidatively stressed diet. That just means you're eating stuff that doesn't cause inflammation in the body. So plants are antioxidants, so therefore they're not causing oxidation.
But you eat meat some, right? Or do you?
Well,
not
I ended up coming back around to meat when I finally came to the conclusion, and I hope I'm right. I'm about 99% assured that if I eat low amounts of organic, grass-fed beef and organic chicken, it's the meat is only as good as the animal it came from, and the dairy. Same with the dairy. It's only as good as the animal.
How it was raised and how it was cared for.
Yes. Yeah. And this whole throwing them in a factory thing and expecting to feed them grain and give them antibiotic shots and hormone shots, steroid shots, you're not going to get healthy meat from that.
Right.
You're just not. But the healthy cow out on the farm living the good life in the sunshine, that's going to develop healthy meat right there.
Right.
So I'm comfortable eating that meat, and I still try to keep the portion sizes in perspective.
But that changed your world when you started implementing those restrictions, and actually, I think it's Jocko that says it, discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
A little restraint, some boundaries around that opened your eyes up to, wait a minute, maybe there's alternatives for the people coming through my clinic. Before I start with the pills or in conjunction with the pills, maybe I should stress these other things that are more in their control.
Yeah, and it made such a huge difference. It no longer was, what are we going to add on next? It was, what can we take away? I was getting an average of 4-point drops in A1Cs, and people would say 4 points. Where are these people starting
Real
from?
quick, and I don't want to spend too much time. These are shorter podcasts. What's A1C? Tell everybody.
A1C is it's an indicator of your average blood sugar over the last 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And I had people in an A1C of, my A1C is about 5.4. Your average person out there that's fairly healthy is 5.3, 5.4, 5. 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, you're starting to get and then 6.5 and above. I used to have people that were in the 10s, 11s, 12s.
Double and triple almost.
Oh, and so these are people who are averaging sugars over 300, 350 and stuff. And so, but when all of a sudden they weren't drinking the high fructose corn syrup drink, I used to be able to drop people 2 points on their A1C just by getting them to stop drinking real Cokes and real whatever. The high fructose corn syrup made a huge difference. But since I've been doing all this diet stuff, the only thing that's changed with me since then is I've learned since I've been at Nutrition World and being around Ed is that maybe it's a little bit of that oxidative stress and stuff. Maybe I didn't give carbs or not, going a little more lower carb. I don't think you need to go no carbs.
Well, but also, because you also do coaching, and we'll end up on that here in the next few minutes, but it's also so individualized, right? It's what works for me. Some of that may work. What you did may work. Some of that would work for me. But I'm going to hit a point of diminishing returns where if I want to be the best version of me, then what I'm doing off that base change, now it becomes individualized, right? That's why when you talk to people, you're like, some people can get away with more carbs. Some people can't.
Right.
And Ed has a thing about oxalates, some foods. There's some foods that hurt him worse than they do me.
Right.
And so I think that's the point where it becomes, I think what you do here and what folks like Amber and Katie and Ed do, the coaching component is so important because it first of all, it gives people the basis to start. Where do I start? These big things. Now I've implemented those. What do I do next, and how can it be different from what I see on TikTok? Right. Because what you see on TikTok is not usually specialized or personalized for the person.
Right.
And do you like working here?
Oh yeah, it's been
good
wonderful.
answer since you're on their podcast. Well done. I was hoping I didn't set you up for failure, sir.
I'm loving every minute of it. It's been great.
Well, you're a learner. You got your doctorate degree, right?
Well, and I call myself a truth seeker, and that's what's led me to be here.
Well, I've heard you already implement some of the phraseology, the knife and fork, the green pharmacy, those.
Yeah.
And it seems like you already had the mindset before you got here. You'd already gone through that.
Well, and the whole reason I got here was because I was working with a nurse practitioner at the homeless clinic.
Yeah.
So I created clinical services at the homeless clinic, and some of the practitioners I worked with down there, one of them, her husband had worked with Ed. And she was like, and I guess she knew enough about Ed to know. And every time I would talk, she would just say, "You ought to meet Ed Jones. You guys are a lot alike." And I think she was probably talking to our whole political, just so many things about us are in line. She was like, "You should go talk to that guy, because y'all are so much alike." And I was like, "Well, it must be a good guy, But anyway,
what a great human he must be.
So I did. I reached out to Ed, and we ended up having a meeting. And we went down and started talking, and I kind of told him where I was with my career, and I said, I'm looking for the next thing to do or whatever. And 5 minutes into the conversation, and realizing, I guess, how much we were aligned in our thinking, 5 minutes into it, he's like, "I want you to work here." And so I was like, okay, sounds great.
He and I have talked about this, and I'll get your take on it, and then I want to dive into what you do here and some of the things, protocols you may use for folks. But he and I talked that, and I'm not being political, but COVID in itself changed a lot of people's minds about things, right? Had their own approach to health, what they were being told by people, what they weren't being told by people, what they were allowed to say, not allowed to say. And now, especially as we look back on it, I think it is I think it was a game changer for health, not medicine, but for health.
No, I agree.
And it sounds like it met you at the right time. And I can tell you one of the reasons Ed gets excited when he meets people like you and his former radio host, Dr. Green, and Thera, and other people that he's brought on here, is when those clinical medical worlds collide with this holistic approach, and there's openness to discussing the benefits of both.
Right.
You got to have both at different times and for different reasons. When he finds that kind of mind, he wants that on his team.
Right.
And when he meets people like you, I remember when he first met you, because you're not going to believe this guy I got, man. He's well versed in the medical stuff, but he knows that it's limited.
Right.
And so he hungry hippoed you, man. He pulled you in quickly. Was it an immediate good vibe where you're like, I'm here, I'm in?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was moved. In some way, I was moved to be where I am.
How did the what you do now evolve? In other words, when you first came here, I would imagine, and I kind of know a little behind the scenes, there's some like, okay, what am I going to do? Right? I'm at this different place. Now what you do is you coach between 4 to 10 people a week, depending on it, and you spend a lot of time with your clients.
I do.
But now you've got it kind of down to a system. Tell people what you do. Like who's a good client for you? That's a good way to put it, maybe.
I got a guy coming to me today that's has a calcium score of about 117. So he's got moderate heart disease, and they're wanting to put him on several different medications. The good news with him is he hasn't started them yet. And so I'm going to take him down the green pharmacy path and put him on some great things there. I mean, that's a good case study as far as we're going to get him from the beginning and before he even gets to.
He's not a year down the road on.
I say the one I brought up one time in another on the radio show. I brought up a guy that basically 2 drugs had led him down this path of total. His health was just poor.
Right.
And it was 2 different drugs. It was a statin and a proton pump inhibitor that had led to his demise. Every side effect and every other drug he was on was a result of starting on those 2 drugs.
We talk about this all the time. Take this, I feel better. Now I've got a side effect. Well, you need this pill to fix the side effects.
Well, the problem with the statins is you don't ever feel better with anything. You just Anyway, it led him down a path. Now the proton pump inhibitor, people that take those, they'll tell you that makes him feel better because it's getting rid of some of the GI side effects, the reflux and the different things. The problem is, and that's another person I've got coming in the next couple of days, is that it's about a 30-day period, that you should be on these, and that 8 weeks maybe at most. And the people that keep taking it for year after year after year, that's where you end up with problems.
I don't like this podcast all of a sudden.
Maybe you should come see me. Yeah. I got a whole protocol to get you off.
Well, I might, because it's really, I tell people all the time, it's really the only thing I take that if I don't take it for 2 or 3 days, I see a difference.
Well, yeah, because you're getting reflux, you're getting rebound.
Yes.
So you're, in a sense, you're sort of physically addicted to it.
Well, I don't know where the camera is exactly, but this is how you get free medical advice, ladies and gentlemen. Just become a podcaster. You don't know how many times I've gone, oh, that's fantastic, and I'll leave here and go buy the products.
Well, there's one question you had at the beginning, and then you got to it again, and I still haven't answered it yet, but what has changed since I started working here, and that is the amount of nutraceuticals that are out there that are effective that I had no idea even existed. All right, so for instance, I put together this thing. We're going to be doing a little Instagram thing where I'm going to say, here's the pharmaceutical that's popular, and here's the green pharmacy alternative. So I put together 10 things here, and let me tell you how many I knew about before I started working at Nutraceuticals.
Go for it.
And so NSAIDs, ibuprofen, Aleve. What would I have said prior to working here? I don't. Maybe I knew a little bit about curcumin, but I certainly didn't know how good it was. That it had all the studies to back it up, or whatever. So I didn't know the value of curcumin, and I didn't know anything about boswellia. All right, so there's 2 things I knew nothing about. Metformin, the green alternative is berberine. All right, I did know that. I used to try to put people on berberine. The problem in the medical world is, though, that I would recommend berberine, that they were going to have to come to maybe either the internet or come down to Nutrition World.
Right.
And it was going to cost them about $21. I used to work with the working poor, and so $21 was probably a lot for them.
Yeah.
They want the $5 copay metformin prescription, and so there's a problem.
Pennies,
why? And I think that's something that, and maybe Kennedy will get to this in the next 4 to however many years we're going to have a role here. But why isn't insurance paying for stuff that's safe and effective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they should be.
Right.
What
else you got on your list?
Claritin and Zyrtec are your antihistamines. I did know about quercetin. I knew it existed.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I knew it existed because I used to take it because during COVID, it's a zinc ionophore, which allows zinc to be able to go in and keep a virus from replicating. So when they restricted hydroxychloroquine to the people, this became a natural alternative that could do the same thing as hydroxychloroquine. So, but like I said recently, I said something to the effect of quercetin. I noticed that my allergies were doing better while I was taking it, and I was like, oh, I don't know why my allergies are doing so much better, but now I know because I found out that this is nature's antihistamine.
Gotcha.
Also, stinging nettle. I mean, actually, I didn't know anything about that till a couple months ago.
Okay.
All right, and I've used it now, and it works like a charm. So I'm a big believer in it. Your blood pressure medications, your enalaprils, losartans, amlodipines. I just mentioned the 3 different things that when people are on blood pressure medicines, there's a good chance they're on one of those 3. They're either on an ACE inhibitor, losartan, or amlodipine. It's amazing how many people are on those. So what did I know that we had? I probably knew a little bit about garlic, maybe could be something. Beetroot extract, maybe, but had no idea there was hibiscus, that CoQ10 actually lowers blood pressures. French grapeseed extract is great. So all that's new to me. Stress, anxiety. So you've got the benzodiazepines and stuff. Now, we're not going to have anything, I don't think, in the green pharmacy that's going to be like a benzodiazepine.
Right.
But once again, everything comes at a cost, though. Those things, after you stay on them for a good while, you're pretty good chance you're going to get addicted to them. Not a good chance you're going to get addicted to anything in the...
Well, it depends, I would imagine, where you start in the process on these things too, right? Because sometimes, and I'm throwing this out there anecdotally, just my life, sometimes if I start taking something from the green pharmacy, like you mentioned earlier, the gentleman that's coming in that's before he's had any intervention, if I can get in the middle or the beginning of something, my body and my mind just need a little kickstart. In other words, I don't go down the rabbit hole so far. My body and my mind are ready to respond. So maybe something like one of these products will help me generate my own momentum, get my body jump started again.
Bridge the gap.
Yeah. Because sometimes I just need a little help.
Yeah.
I don't, and if I wait or I get on one of these other medical products, the help's gone. Now I'm just dependent.
Yep.
Yeah.
L-theanine.
Yeah.
L-theanine. I did know about L-theanine, and that's the reason being is that this is when I got COVID 3 times. All right. First of all, I've been through. I had a job for 25 years at Erlanger, and I loved my job, and I was always happy working there. I was always upbeat. Never sick. 25 years, never sick.
Right.
I think there was one Christmas when I was at the in-laws, and I was, you let your guard down a little bit. It seems like when you're totally relaxed or whatever, sometimes it hits you. I got the flu one time in 25 years. I guess the only time I can remember being sick, and I never missed a day of work.
Okay.
All right. And then I got the next job I got was at the health department, and nothing against them, but what I was doing there is not a good fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when you kind of feel trapped, I don't know. I ended up with COVID 3 times.
Stress.
Basically.
And,
I mean, you could say
exposure.
that there was no COVID prior to when I was working, where there was the last year I was at Erlanger, when COVID hit. I was my daughter and 2 of her friends came home from college.
Right.
Stayed in our house, had COVID. I was with them, right next to them. I wasn't worried about it. Right with them, I never caught it. But then all of a sudden, so in other words, what I'm getting at is I think that when you're not upbeat and life is not all, when life's not perfect or is not great, I think you have more of a tendency to get sick.
I will, and then I want to finish the list because I want to wrap it up talking about what I think you do here and let you confirm or deny it. But I think when your body's stressed emotionally,
yes,
and anxiety, it suppresses everything. I mean, that's I think there's studies around that. When we are experiencing stress, our body reacts like it's physical too. It goes, okay, we're under stress.
Yeah.
He's not sleeping good. His heart rate's always up. He's not breathing right. Why are these hormones getting released? Something's up. And then you get hit by something, and your body doesn't have the strength to fight it all off.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is that's why I think, trying to find ways to sound too hippie-ish, but stay grounded and get a little sun and do all these
Absolutely.
things. But keep going down your list before I ask you the final thing.
Well, and just to finish up on the COVID thing is that I had a whole protocol, and I used to share it with people. Matter of fact, I used to put packets together for my family and friends, and as soon as they told me they had COVID, I went over and rushed it to them and gave it to them, and you would be amazed at how many would say within 24 hours they were already turning around. And this was just big doses of vitamin D, big doses of vitamin C, mainly the quercetin with zinc were the 2 big things.
Yeah.
And then I was throwing in all kinds of other different things with that, and it worked like a charm. And it worked like a charm for me, too, when I got COVID. But me being, I don't know why I did this. This is prior to having the full knowledge I have now of things. But part of the protocol that I stole from, like, the Dr. McCullough and those guys, but they had a little thing that said, if on day 5 you have access to a Z-Pack, take a Z-Pack. If you have access to a steroid, prednisone, if you have access to it, take. But I should have never taken it because I didn't need it. I was having no symptoms at all. But just to be sort of whatever, I took.
You were checking the boxes.
I was checking the box, and I had taken prednisone in the past. I don't remember why, but I'd taken some. I'd never had any problems. But day 5 of having COVID was the day that I started on prednisone. And looking back, those were the days that I first started to feel anxiety. And so I was having this anxiety. I had never had this before. I'd never experienced it in my life. I didn't know what it was. And I don't know, being a typical man or whatever, I didn't even want to talk about it to people. I didn't even want to talk to my wife. Like, hey, I'm feeling these weird things, or something's wrong here. And it's not the best way to be, because I think sometimes talking through things with people is the best way to get it out of you. And, when you stop worrying about worrying and that kind of thing. But anyway, and I did this 2 times. I did this prednisone thing before I realized it's the damn prednisone that's causing this anxiety on me. And it must have been, I don't know, it was tipping me over the edge, because this stuff, it literally took me months and months to get over this anxiety. And anyway, but during that time, I did take L-theanine to take the edge off. So I did know a little bit about L-theanine.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. We only got a few minutes left.
Depression. No idea that saffron was as good as it is.
Okay.
Nexium, that the proton pump inhibitors that we've got all kinds of DGL, mastic gum, curcumin. Actually, I laugh about this. Pretty much everything I've mentioned here, curcumin's good for.
Right.
So anyway, Zofran. It's hard to beat Zofran, but it does come with some side effects. It is going to make you sleepy. It is going to give you constipation. It is. But ginger works pretty daggum good. I never gave it the credit it was due. I remember a cousin of mine was on a ship, had some ginger, and I just kind of remember thinking that's kind of whatever, hokey or whatever. But that's back before I had the value, the understanding that I have now of how this stuff really works, which is a part of our training in the medical world. We are, in a subtle way, we're taught to sort of undermine and whatever, devalue this world over here, which is unfortunate. And then the last one was the statins, and we've got so many good things, bergamot, and red yeast rice and things like that.
That's a great place to kind of wrap this part up in the podcast up, because I asked you what you do, and you do the coaching, and you gave us a couple examples. I'm going to say something to you, and you say it back if I'm right, and then we're going to tell people how to get a hold of you if they want to, whether it's going to the website or whatever. But your job is one of the reasons, and I've brought you stuff that like my parents may be on, is to actually do what you were doing at the diabetes clinic, which is to get people, if possible. By the way, always ask your doctor before you stop medicines. We're not here to treat or diagnose. This is something you need to talk to your professional healthcare about.
Yeah, and every consult I do, I put on the end of it. This is intended to be in conjunction with your medical doctor.
This is to get you curious and informed, and so you can start asking the right questions.
And they're always feeling like, do you want me to share this with my? And I'm like, I'll back up myself. I'm a grown man that's been around for a while here. I can back up what I'm.
Have them call me. We'll talk it through.
Yeah.
Well, but I want to finish that up because it's your job. It seems like to get people off those things, if at all possible, to improve your life. Come, let's talk to me where you're at with your symptoms. Bring me your list of medications, and when at all possible, let's either reduce the amount you're using or get you off of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you do a lot of? Mostly.
And there are certain, and I think you get the feeling that I'm not a big fan of statins, so I definitely try to get them off statins.
Yeah.
But the blood pressure meds, a lot of them I don't have a big problem with. But what I've learned since I've been here is that instead of giving them this pharmaceutical here that's going to lower their blood pressure, it's got good outcome studies, it's fine. But why not give them something that's not only going to lower their blood pressure, but it's also going to have all these side benefits.
And it's a little more natural.
And that's the biggest thing I see between the two worlds is that the pharmaceutical world, sometimes you can hit the nail on the head and you have no side effects.
Right.
But eventually there's going to be a side effect, or probably going to be a side effect, and you probably have some side effects you're not even aware of, or what it's doing to your kidneys or your liver, or your depletion of minerals and vitamins.
You don't know until all of a sudden you know. Right. You don't know until all of a sudden.
Whereas all these nutraceuticals, the green pharmacy has all these side, I call benefits. They're not only are they helping you with this, but they're doing all these other great things in the body too.
Right.
So very rarely, zinc will give me, it'll make me nauseous if I take it on an empty stomach. But there's very few things that are just going to affect you real negatively. And
then there's alternatives. If somebody hears this podcast and go, "That's a cool story. I'm glad he's there. I want to talk to him." Should they go to the website? Do they call the number? Do they call you? Is it nutritionw.com and you're on there? Is that the best way?
Or they can come in to the store.
But you do take appointments.
I do take appointments. Yeah, absolutely. When I leave here, somebody will be waiting on me.
How much time should someone set aside for that appointment? I'm asking because I know you. If somebody comes in, it's because one of the things that we talk about, which as a benefit to the client, very rarely, if you say it's a 45-minute meeting, is it a 45-minute meeting?
Well, it's supposed to be a 50-minute consult. You're paying for a 50-minute consult, but when you come in, the guy that'll come in today at 11:30,
yes,
he will at 12:30 something. I'll notice that it's kind of gone over an hour, and I'll say, any other questions in, and then we'll talk and then I actually get up and I go out into the store and help them pick out the things that we think are going to make them better.
I've never met a coach that's on the floor as much as you. That's a compliment.
Yep.
As much as anything.
Yep.
So if you're wanting a coach, or if you see Dr. Dearing on the floor, he's probably with somebody. So you might ask him a question, but he's not going to brush you off. But he's probably in the middle of helping somebody shop for something. I'm glad you're part of the Nutrition World family.
Yeah,
man.
me too.
Yeah, let's wrap this
Great
one up.
being here.
Thank you very much for your time. I know you're super busy, and if anybody's interested, you can go to nutritionw.com under the coaching, and you'll find Dr. Dearing. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.